The pronunciation too soon or soon?
Soon in China.
Soon.
Soon.
Soon. And Chen.
Thank you.
Shadi. I will pronounce it Shadi. Thank you.
Timekeeper in here. He's back there at the coffee break. Mr. Timekeeper, come on in, please. He's the most important person here. Come on in and have a seat. We're so excited for this next two sessions. Welcome. We're so glad to be here. Dr. Ibru Kenan Sokulu, I'm sure I probably mispronounced that, but just a distinguished member of UNITAR. As I said a few minutes ago, the United Nations Institute for Training and Research.
Yes, I'm trying to.
She is the Deputy Director of the Division for People and Social Development. And Daniel Nazaroff, our good friend who works with her, just told me that she was part of a very prestigious university in Istanbul and is in fact convert. So I just met her out at the coffee break, and she was talking to the shop.
Connect once I
And I
get
did
it
not
out.
realize that you were from Turkey, but welcome. We're so
If you
glad
want to go
to
up
be
there,
here.
yeah.
This is a tremendous group, the Geneva Institute for Leadership and Public Policy. Of course, Alex Mahey is a dear friend. You are speaking in his stead, for which we're grateful. And he's actually going to be speaking to us at the UN on Thursday afternoon. He's traveling today. But we'll turn the floor over to you, and we're looking forward to hearing it.
Thank you very much for this very warm welcome in the shop. You made my day. I was not expecting to start my day speaking in Turkish, which is always really nice. I'm here on behalf of our director, Mr. Alex Mejia. So he sent his greetings. He's on an official mission that we have to attend, but he actually gave me some favor before joining this morning to you. I'm very lucky to be speaking and sharing the moment with such a distinguished audience. I'm looking forward to, of course, having your reactions, observations, and your stories whenever you would like to intervene. As the topic is a little bit personal, for particularly someone working at the UN, previously working in academia, who was teaching these, global challenges for almost 2 decades. I used to work as a political scientist in Turkey at Bahçeşehir University in Istanbul, and that was part of my academic interest and field of expertise to do research, to graduate people, to tell what's going on in the world, to provide them some optimistic solutions, and trying to equip young people with some contextual, theoretical, conceptual depth on these topics. Now, working at UNITAR, I'm on the other side of the problem of global challenges and what could be the leadership solutions, if there are leadership solutions, or if there are other material challenges and traits that the leaders should be doing. So these are all very good questions. I'll try to, intervene with some of my observations. I hope in the end of this session you will not regret that Alex is not here, that I'm here. So this is an important rehearsal to get the invitation for next year. Well, thank you very much again for having me. So the title that was going back and forth, we were, communicating with Henry. I was thinking through like what should be the title of today's speech. How could I contribute? How could the UN perspective contribute to this big broad topic of leadership, public sector? Most of the part of this session today you will hear are part of the UN perspective. Rather than focusing on global challenges, that every day in the history of civilization is a new chapter of a challenge, right? So let me start saying that history is a continuation, right? So we're going through very different times today, but it's not new. The challenges that were faced in different parts of the world for different groups of people at different extents has always been with humanity. So I think what we should keep in our mind and approach to offer solutions or to become a part of the solution is like a pair of glasses. So I love this analogy. I always start my courses and whatever in whichever context I deliver the speech anywhere with what kind of different kind of audiences that the way that we handle the world is actually it starts with a pair of glasses. Right? So imagine a sunglass that you're wearing with dark lenses. You tend to see everywhere in dark color. It's comfortable because you're wearing the sunlight, but you don't see many details, right? Some people prefer nicer designs, colorful, creative designs. So this is actually about focus on some conceptual categorization on how a leader at different stages, different levels, can tackle the problems, be it in private sector, be it in public sector, even though the very nature and the format of these two sectors are quite unique in their natures. The final outputs, the final expected projects are pretty much different from each other. In the public sector, you look for a common good, public good, that most IR would define tragedy of common. So that's why my approach to it is to kind of remind ourselves a sort of realistic approach. So this is our Secretary General. Sorry, I can say that. I'll just let him ask you. Let me then make more attractive. So, the United Nations, I don't want to go to the history of the United Nations and opposed. Right? This is the first maybe time that a United Nations Secretary General is called Marcelo Madraza. He is a very adamant speaker of values and principles that many people today don't want to hear because we're so much buried under the real problems and challenges, right? And many people in the world is considering himself and the big international organization and actually the value chain that he represents as outdated, not functioning, and different adjectives that are always put. And of course, it's very easy for everybody who writes and outside to put the blame on somebody else. This is very much in the nature of the artistic community, right? So, but he represents the world's largest organization that operates with hundreds of thousands of people around the world. Most of them are on the ground, working with the real life problems. Right? And he represents an intergovernmental organization. He is a leader of an intergovernmental organization by definition of this concept. The members of the organization are states. Right? So state is the most powerful authorities in the world system today. Economic power, territorial power, military power, and everything. And so we expect a certain level of leadership from Secretary General to operate, to find solutions as if those solutions are created by that particular organization. Right? And that's why I really believe that the two terms of concerning affairs has been remarkable in the history of the United Nations, which is a part of the history of world politics. Right? So he's representing the public sector. And the public sector that is represented by the United Nations today is an amalgamation of the public and private interests. So they expect from different entities and agencies, including myself, Intel, cooperate in the most excellent way when the funds are cut, when thousands of people are losing their jobs, and these are the people who actually would be the experts, right? They were providing the know-how to the system. They were part of the solutions at the local level. They were talking very regular life. Humanitarian workers. So that's why I think to understand the public sector leadership today, I'll give you some examples when you belong to the other sector organizations today. It is only a part of the solution that different entities in the world are creating the problem. So first we need to have a clear understanding on what today public sector is, how it serves in the capitalist world. We cannot consider the public sector and the leader of the public sector independently from the private interests, independently from the interests of different actors of civil society, individuals, right? And different communities of different interests. So that's why instead of concentrating on public sector per se, I think we need to reconfigure our approach to leadership. I have a son who's 13 years old. I try to explain these things to him because he's playing basketball and he wants to be the team leader. And when I say, team leader, if you want to become a leader of the team, a 13-year-old basketball team, he has to have certain skills or attributes that we So it doesn't change much, right? It's a pair of glasses that we need to be able to use, regardless of the land, or the civil society organization and so on. So it is very essential to maybe to try to understand the human being. I'm not a psychologist. I cannot really explain like how human brain works. I'm not a neuroscientist or whatever. But I think there are different kind of categories that that is very standard for every human being. And even if you're a team player, if you're leading the team, if you're completely living your life in isolation, these are the four simple categories. Mindset, we need mindset. We need to talk about the ability of human beings. Personality traits, as in the 1950s, there was great Edinger, and he was a part of the critical psychology community that was about to emerge in the US. He actually defined personality as an important component of all leadership, right? He has this fantastic book that was published in 1957, Personality Traits for Leadership. So, and it's social skills, of course, right? Living in isolation. And the mindset, I'll just quickly talk about the categories under these pillars. Mindset, our ability, our personal traits, and the social skills. So it's a package. So the first one, mindset. Let's categorize mindset into two groups: fixed or growth-oriented mindset, and optimism versus catastrophe. Right? So, what is a fixed mindset? It assumes that our intelligence, character, and abilities are static, and we're not open to change. My dad is 85 years old, and I don't know that he's fixed mindset. He wasn't promoted during the 1980s, and he was a part of the 68 generation. And now I think he's becoming a real conservative. Probably it's because I ask him sometimes, probably it's because he finds change and adaptability and agility really, really tiring. And the growth mindset, it's quite the opposite. Everybody is today working with AI in our offices, right? When I was at university, I had this international law professor, right? And I'm not talking about 1950s at the university student. I was at university. And this professor, who was like a really known one, he said, and he lived with me as well in his 5 years in New Zealand. He said, no, we should do university education in Turkish. I don't accept English here. And he was a graduate of Cambridge, right? And he was extremely agnostic to internet. So now time changed. AI came into our mind. I was a professor by that time, 4 years ago, and I was like thinking exactly the same way. If my student writes an essay using AI, I'm not going to grade it. It's plagiarism. So we need to actually, first of all, understand how we change. Right? If we don't communicate with the poets, with the students, with our family members, categorically neglecting AI, attention, or whatever, will enlarge the generational gap. And generational gap is not about the age. It's about the world. If you're leading to a growing mindset. So in most public sector, I'm coming from Turkey, and I'm proud of being Turkish, but we need reforms in governance, right? Because now there is a vast amount of young talented people coming. So you cannot rule with the old school, where the professors like my professor at the time, right? This very agile team workers. So you need to be open with the growth mindset. Optimism. Optimism is a part of how open you are to learn new things. Learning is very difficult. Learning is very costly. You have to devote your resources to learning. Your time, your energy, your feelings, and that sort of thing. So, I think learning requires a very high level of optimism. I'm not talking about 18th century romanticism here, right? Optimism. Be open to what is changing. There is a change. Because as the problems are changing, the solutions are also changing. It's tools that we use are changing. So we have to adopt it to our approach of leading the groups. What are the priorities? I think everybody today, I'm sure in this room, outside the room, is feeling excessive fatigue. Right? We're always tired. Because we are spending the majority of our lives, of days, at work, even in office or in front of computer, to accomplish a task, accomplish many tasks at the same time, right? And so this is very exhausting, right? So what I observe is that we are facing with a prioritization, priority management. So my husband is always accusing me for not being able to prioritize the tasks. So maybe it's because I'm so fed up with other important tasks at work, so I don't want to prioritize anything at home, so I'm like a couch potato. But this is not only me, I'm sure about it, right? If we don't prioritize our daily tasks, if we don't invest in our well-being, we cannot invest in our communities. Can you imagine a community worker who actually hates what he's doing or she's doing? Right? So what is the root that he or she experiences? So the priority management, the simple typology, of course there are approaches to we can think about two pillars. Urgent, if what we're doing is urgent, or what our team is doing urgent, or what is the level of importance? And that's what we see, right? And in the public sphere, it is extremely essential for a very simple reason. The public sector organization is using public resources. It's not about the wealth management. It's not about private business interests, right? Where you see maximization of the profits. So there are different types of profits in the public sector. It's not big. Being visionary, I'm sure that every institution today has these fantastic, very fancy vision statements and key statements. And the most fantastic ones are written by we don't really need a very huge level of sophistication to become a visionary. We just need to empathize, right? Our personal values, the values for the communities, and in your vision statement you can say, kill the people, attack this part of the country, or destroy this institution. So, intelligence. Now I think it's becoming very outdated. We use emotional intelligence in the workspaces. This is, different, right? We need colleagues with high level of emotional intelligence. It's a part of our humanity. It's a part of very basic human skills, like smiling, connecting with people. This is the best way to deliver a message, right? connect because the part of any sort of leadership, any type of leadership, in the end, in any sector, private sector, academia, it goes to trust. Relationship management, which is one of the essential skills of a leader, right, requires establishing trust. I was brought up in a family where my father always, and I was very little, when he was doing music and consequences, Edgar, when you meet a new person, you should start your relationship on a thermometer, 0 to 100 level of trust. With every person level of trust. You should give people a chance. You should give yourself a chance to build trust. Can you imagine? I'm sure you've been through several times of your lives, through moments where you had to work, you had to meet with people that you don't even trust. It's a real challenge. It is the same for political leaders. It is the same for the CEOs. It's the same for you have to trust your supervisor. You have to trust your team member. You have to trust your peer, right? Because it's a part of your success, and you're driven with this motivation of success, right? And I think there are fantastic barometers. The Edelman stress and whatever you can find it, world value surveys, and we measure trust. And where it has to be everywhere around the world, we lose trust in institutions. Public sector is an institution, right? Institutions have life spans, so it's never a linear thing, the success of a institution. But the thing is that if you start losing trust in what you do in interpersonal communication, imagine at home, you don't trust your kid. The kid doesn't trust you. Right? So, and family is an institution. So, really emotional intelligence, smart intelligence, and different sorts of intelligence to maintain the level of trust to sustain, right? To become agile. I think a couple of years ago I was in an old panel and I stopped here. We were talking about that was in the beginning. All the universities are super concerned about we have to publish 2 SSCI publications annually, then you have to have these conferences, everything is based on grading system for academics, for students, and everything. And at some point I said, I didn't expect that. Now AI is writing a better paper. Of course, the quality is a completely different loss that we have to do. But I'm not suggesting to go back to the times of Aristotle either. Right? But what we lost, and I think every leader that triggers the tendency should be cognizant of what is going on around the world. This brings us to the need of slowing down and observing. Observing is the first step of collecting data, analyzing data, writing policy prescriptions, and leading, right? Observing requires slowing down. And I stop here, this is exactly the same based on different experiences in life, because I still have a long way to go. Now I'm experiencing at the UN, obviously we're dealing with a lot of private and different sectors' interest and priorities. But we need to slow down and come back to the factory settings time to time. Right? Because we're living in an era of consolidation. Nothing has started today, and it's not going to start today. So that reminds us the conflicts, resolution of the conflicts, trying to understand and becoming part of the solutions. in every sector. I stopped there. I had several other slides. It's always better not to go through the slides, Please, I'm here to have your reactions or questions, comments. Please feel free. And thank you very much.
Please sit down. We have a gift for you that's come from around the world. So we have gifts from Ethiopia, Egypt, Thailand, Turkey. Yes. Where else where am I missing? Nigeria. And so we're so honored to have you. Also, after Prince Nicholas speaks, we're going to have a few minutes for questions for Prime Minister Hager, you, and Prince Nicholas before we go to lunch. So if you can stay, that would be great. And we'll be having lunch before. Of course, please. Thank you. Oh, let me give you your gift here. I have to find your bag. Give me just a second. Ah, yes. There it is right there with your name on it. Thank you. Again. And we're also going to talk to each speaker about whether or not their presentation is available for delivery to you. Okay, and so we'll get back to you in the next couple of days and let you know about that. But this information, we do talk about emotional intelligence and a lot of the things you talk about a lot. So thank you. And that goes to the heart of character and real leadership, and we're grateful for that. So thank you for what you share. And by the way, next time I'll ask you to come before I ask Allison Heaton. Now, don't tell him I said that. Okay? That's just private. Oh, Daniel, works closely with Bo and is a great friend as well. So, Prince, we're so glad to hear from you, honored. And if you'll go, it's about 11:35, so we have 30 minutes. And then we'll have a panel discussion with the three of y'all before we go. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. Thank you for the exchange we can have. I have two preliminary remarks first. Already heard has also for the famous also important for the leadership profession, and I think it's great what we heard just now. Also we can have these two slides to keep our memory fresh. Second remark is I will be very general mainly on diplomacy per se and less on the question of is it lost or not. We are going to that more in the discussion. When we talk about lost or not lost diplomacy, I would say it has a lot to do with politics, investment in the whole diplomacy. But those are just the preliminary remarks. And you will give me the theme I have to speak. Well, first of all, we have to see what we mean with art and what we mean with diplomacy. Art very often is defined as that you have to have a good knowledge of your professional training, so to say. And the second thing is creativity. And I think both play a big role also in diplomacy. And of course the instrument that you have at your disposal, like Rembrandt and his toolkits, how to go around with the painting with the colors and so on. That's also diplomacy, and you learn also, at least at diplomacy, I will keep it with, I think, the shortest definition, and that is solving problems is the, I love this definition, that's too long, and that's what we try to do. What is the diplomacy work? What are the parts of diplomacy work? Well, I think again, you negotiate, you communicate, of course, you try to bilaterally, you try to send over the message you got from your political masters. I think that is an important part. You build relationships, you heard a lot about that. Building trust, of course, is adamantly important for diplomacy, so we can have really do also some negotiation. And of course, you promote interest in the local country or the institution work. Talk about nowadays of all sorts of, sorts of diplomacy, bilateral diplomacy, multilateral, in context, public diplomacy, try to take over to the bigger public, some of the messages, and more and more, of course, there's also not technical, very technical, something that can help bigger diplomacy, the presence in social medias, and having something we call metaverse diplomacy. Speaker mentioned that on the weekend. Well, diplomacy, let me say that we all have to be diplomats in a certain way. It starts in the family. There's always the right moment to say something and not to say you want a lot of difficult things on your partner, and with your child, the way you deal with children, to find the right words, all that is, of course, you could say, is also when it really starts diplomacy. I would say, with all of diplomatic skills, you learn best in your own country. A certain humility, to be open to the other. Patience is very important for people. So I think family is the first place where you can use diplomacy and where you can learn diplomacy, understanding the interest of your partner. I like the word of Saint-Exupéry when he talked about couples, and I think that's true for diplomacy too. It's not just to look at each other, but to look together in the same direction. So I think that fits a lot also for diplomacy. Of course, the higher you go in the society echelon, the more for diplomacy plays a role, right? Because the responsibility of more people to do diplomacy, people integrated in the whole. So I think, you see that there, diplomacy is doing well, and I will say, some new commitment first to practice in Switzerland to learn what is such knowledge, how to standardize it, to look because very important diplomacy, of course, when we speak about diplomacy, is very much bilateral, nation, and also now it's perhaps more map our global world, multinational, different ways together to the problem, economic, degree, and trust society. Well, coming back on this question, is it a lost art? I would say certainly not. I think of a city like Geneva, or even International City, we have thousands of diplomats here. Most of them have a very thorough training when they arrive here already. We travel around, but also most of them follow courses on diplomacy, on negotiating, and so on. So you have the artists, that is no doubt, but then we come back to it perhaps. Questions how they are used. Tens of thousands of well-trained diplomats working in different embassies on sometimes specialized ones. And then of course you have also diplomats working in NGOs, that is a very important aspect of the International Crisis Group, but of course we very often have the feeling diplomacy doesn't work anymore, it has become more difficult without this case, and around the world, armed conflict, and go on for more than 20, 30 years already now. And so that of course gives us the feeling that it works. On the other hand, you shouldn't forget, and that's less in the media, a lot of conflicts to be avoided through diplomacy. But why is it today perhaps more difficult? Sometimes we have a different look on diplomacy. Nowadays we get our instructions daily without end, so that is a big gain, at least that the political level is not to the way today in political diplomacy to be better before. And of course, it's a remark that I think is true, that many of our political masters are not very different. Internal political situation, and that is a key issue that we talked already about before. Leaders, of course, ready, and now it's the stage where often the public is immediately action of the politicians to conduct a process to act. So there's never been a situation where people take decisions too quickly and then on the longer run the point that becomes really old and we have to come back to it. So this situation that we see everything now immediately all over the world, act immediately, and makes a sort of a more quiet diplomacy without everything being in the public.
I do see that it's a very big issue that the politicians today are coming out and making statements and taking positions immediately. And that makes it very hard on temperament because their position may or may not be right. They may not be accurate. They may not have all the information. We see that all the time in the United States when there's an event and the politicians come out and then a week later they realize actually, it wasn't. So that's what you're saying, and I know that makes it hard on different ones.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. That is certainly more difficult, but understandable, because if you are in politics, you have to think, you heard, what talked about leadership and influence. You use it, because if your feeling is there, you are not able to quickly react and quickly act. Yeah, that is of course a big issue. A little bit also, of course, in the meantime, we all have even in Scotland today, more bureaucracies. And very often bureaucratic homes and also they know better than the diplomat the other party. And that is something you are sometimes fighting with because very often my experience, many of my colleagues, diplomat colleagues, ambassadors, they have a huge knowledge on different cultures, and on the country. That is another very often great which is a little bit more difficult. And as I said, on the one hand, in politics, all of this legacy that we have, also further politics, plays a big role into how decisions are taken. I suppose more true for bigger countries, even more being able to decide irrespective of people around them, but more on their needs. Of course, that is also an issue that one has to look at. Finally, of course, one also has to see that, and that is really done immediately. So, negotiation, diplomacy, respect, and all that, okay? And use this in future. The very last word of the time, I think we have occupied for human beings. I think that what we see of the expression leaders is new way of the fact that every person, has lives as a human being. I would think it's very worthy of the only very long way of the year forward of human dignity, because we all need to be all of that good to accept that very, very important. Thank you.
Maybe UNISAR could take the lead in that human dignity day. Who knows? I did not take time before I introduced you to tell about your diplomatic history, what you've done. We can just share a minute or two about the roles that you have had in diplomacy over the years as ambassador and so forth. I think the audience would like to hear that.
Well, very well. I was about 35 years in diplomacy, and hardly bilateral, but most of my work was always negotiations, parties, trade negotiations, legal aid negotiations, mainly European, but also with the US. And now I'm much more to sort of other diplomacy, European diplomacy, and working in on how to use the new technologies, especially AI, for the common good, to do dialogue with operational people and, of course, academics and politicians, whatever.
Thank you. And if you want to read more, just Google Prince Nicholas, and you'll be fascinated by his background and his years in this field. And we need more of it. We need more diplomacy and probably less politics. So thank you for what you represent. And we were just saying, we were in Erbil last April, and of course the Prime Minister was there, I was there, Trey, Jeff, Prince Nicholas, and the leader of the country entered into the building. You remember that? And he came down on a red carpet, and the band was playing, and it was a big deal. We got down to the front of the whole. There were like 800 people there. And who was the first person he greeted when he got down there? Prince Nicholas.
Must have made a mistake.
It was amazing, and that really spoke to me about the way you both are recognized on the world stage and what an honor it is to work alongside both of you. So thank you for doing that. And by the way, I was looking at Prince's notes this morning, and I didn't know. I said, "Is that Sanskrit or English, or German or what?" I couldn't tell. His handwriting is worse than mine. Named anything from those notes, but you did a great job. Okay, now we're going to have a few minutes of questions of our three speakers from this morning. The Prime Minister, Dr. Do you mind if I just use your first name? So I don't, yes, Dr. Edward, okay, and Prince Nicholas. And we just want to entertain questions from you all, because one of the real focus points of this conference is we want you to help us drive the agenda. It's not just us lecturing you and talking to you, but we want to hear from you. What are you dealing with? How can we help you be a better leader in your country? And speaking of good leaders, so think about your questions. We're going to spend about 30 minutes doing that. And then we actually have a lunch voucher we'll give you in a few minutes, and then we'll make our way down to the lunch room. But anyway, before we do that, I want to recognize our Ethiopia field leader who just got here, Fidel. And his beautiful wife, please you stand also. We're so glad to have you here. They flew overnight from Addis Ababa. Women's Empowerment Center, all kind of great things they're doing there in Addis Ababa. So I want you to get to know them, and they'll be a part of a panel discussion tomorrow afternoon where we'll learn about some things happening around the world. But Chris Nichols, let me give you your gift before we start the program. Last year, or 2 years ago when he spoke, and I was about to give his gift, he had said that his family had been in leadership in his country for 800 years. Okay? And my question was, how do you give somebody a gift whose family has led a country for 800 years? Okay? So anything we give, I feel like is not representative enough, good enough gift. But this is from all over the world, including, Fidel has brought some gifts from Ethiopia, and we'll include that, but I hope you enjoy that gift from us.
Thank you very much.
So, if you would, and one response I got during the break was, when you speak with your microphone, please speak closely to the microphone so that everybody can hear. Okay, some of the comments in the first couple of sessions we weren't able to hear because some of you are very soft-spoken. So when you speak into your mic, please speak clearly so that everybody can hear. Okay, so questions for any of these panelists, please.
So instead of a question, more of a comment. I was one time at a conference with Prince Nicholas, and I was at the coffee urn, and it was just him and I was sort of wishing I wasn't there, and he's probably thinking the same. And, I mean, where do you get a point of commonality? Talk about a holiday. I said, what were you on your last holiday? And I'm thinking, Prince is on his hot air balloon or his yacht or something like that. And he started talking about his grandkids. One was in the New World, one I think is in Italy, and talking about how he doesn't get enough time with his grandkids, and just telling me about each one. And we were like two granddads, bragging about our grandkids. And this is going back to his point when I'm trying to draw this together, where he talks about diplomacy starts at home. And one of the most influential men in this field and in the world, when he wants to talk about something, he wants to talk about his home. And I would even say, likewise, with Prime Minister Hager, I was also there in Northern Iraq with him, and his kids were there. And boy, if you thought it was tough growing up, you imagine being the son of a Prime Minister. and his kids were there, and they were not allowed to put trash on the ground. When the van pulled up, they were not the first ones in. They left elderly, older people left myself on. And they were not children of privilege. And then again, diplomacy starts at home. They've been talking about leadership and integrity and consistency and honesty and transparency. These are no more apparent than at home. And I want to thank these men for having the character of leaders.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, somebody had a hand up back here.
So I have two questions. First, from Lassiter, he had mentioned that diplomacy is still necessary. But then I'd like to ask how he has been able to deal with people who come to the table feeling superior. Then is there a need for diplomacy because you have a position and you probably have to do what they are saying at the end of the day. Then my second question is for Dr. who have said we needed to slow down for the show. But for leaders, I can imagine that must be very difficult because their interactions are limited.
So how do you observe? You are going to have classes regularly. And the first speaker had mentioned advisors, and maybe the advisors can help you with the observation, but then what you observe is limited to what the advisors say. So how do you determine the quality of people that you put around you just to ensure that your vision is clear? Thank you.
Wow, okay, can you restate Prince Nicholas's question? We were far from him. He and I both lost that after we got so engrossed in your other two.
Okay, my apologies. I was asking where diplomacy is necessary. Sometimes you are at the table with superiors. They come with superior views. They feel superior. They are not ready to negotiate. They are not open to it. So how do you deal with that?
Well, I think the first thing, of course, especially in negotiation, you try to understand what their interests are, real interests, and look through the person to see who they are, who you have to of course, try to understand personality, I frequently very often that's true of diplomacy and politics. Sometimes the best reaction is question. But very often it's you just your position that might sort of block the situation. If you try to bring something on the other side, in the way of a question, you might be more open to open up. But of course, there are other things too you can do. Very often, one way to do it in negotiation is to look well, is who's the only one of the negotiation or not. If they are an openness is another matter. So preparation of negotiation is key. Understand what they want. And the other thing I always say, also in my own political masters, is always don't try to get across too many demands, but try to see and to prioritize what you really want to do. Because you can't get to everything, especially for us now. Try to keep to the main target of the bilateral.
Just a little addition to that, my experience when in Prime Minister and I was meeting with all the world leaders, starting with France, UK, Germany, great nations, like I said, 5.5 million nation, ours, Germany 80. At the end of the day, please think you're dealing with a human being. It's so important to have in mind because they are human just like you. They may be arrogant, they may be self-confident, they might do anything, but they are human. So if you learn to speak to their human attributes, you get them. And first, like we said, start with sometimes you disrupt them with being just too informal. How are you? How are you? Questions always know the hard thing. But you need to see yourself equally with them. If you put yourself low, the atmosphere will feel it. That's not it. Don't put yourself above, or eventually you have to be arrogant. That's not the way to do it.
Thank you for the question. It's a very challenging one, and I think if you're not a good observer, you cannot become a good decision maker. And you cannot manage different teams or different qualities, right? Different phases. So imagine someone that is leading a team of 10 people who are, Ivy League graduates with a lot of different, levels of sophistication of their inspire these people because there is no message that we can convey to these people. Because they will come with their already, existing mindset that they know everything. And the manager is someone that gives orders, right? That evaluates, but that doesn't inspire. So we need to observe the people that we coexist with. We need to collaborate with them. So otherwise it's like dictatorship. We give orders and they implement the orders. And then the system collapses one day when you're gone, right? A new system is created. So I think it's a matter of the approach. In the very beginning, I tried to explain that we need to speak about a leader. We cannot quantify a leader's traits. We can make it from 1 to 5, if he's doing this well or not. Okay, this is a way to quantify. But in terms of slowing down, we need to first of all have a sense of what problem we're tackling. And a good leader, of course, if we're talking about people leaders, and a good people leaders are that many, right? And work with. A good leader is someone that who knows, who has analytical skills, so this comes with a lot of academic, know-how. That person needs also a sense of what's going on in the world at the very moment. And a good sound understanding about history, about cultural intelligence. If you're not the Prime Minister said it very rightly, if you're in a negotiating table with a leader or a team of a country that you have no idea of, you cannot even start with a soft conversation, You need to build trust, and to build trust, you need to touch that person. You need to engage in I was in Slovakia last year, maybe not over the negotiating table, but definitely for the way. So you need to establish this level of trust to engage. Otherwise, you are a person who comes and goes, right? And who the humanity remembers as good leaders. But there are bad and good leaders, and we want to exponentially increase the good leaders. And this is a legacy that we are going to take in the next generation. And I value very much speaking about the personal experiences of the coming years. Because a personal friendly is a personal, the community that cares about the values, that cares about the respect, and I think that the excellence and the dignity of human beings. Without getting the respect to whom you're engaging with, you can just leave the table win-lose situation. But we aim to increase the win-win situation, right? So this is about the sustainability of institutions, public money. So I don't know, I don't have an exact answer, but we really need to slow down, think about the values that humanity is created with. Every faith in the world, we just need to remember our faith. Putting human beings, putting rules in the center of whatever we do. It includes respect, it includes, all the positive values. And there's this beautiful, and rest in peace, Jürgen Habermas. I'm sure you've heard about Jürgen Habermas, who has been a great scholar of, the critical theory in international relations theory. You have two options in life. You either construct your reality looking at the negative or looking at the positive. They're placing to counter each other. So my approach in good leadership is that try to do something good. There's always bad in any group, but we need to remind each other that the positive values, because this is inherent in us. I don't know.
Great. Well, thank you. Excellent. All right, here's what we're going to do. We have about 15 more minutes. So we're going to take 3 or 4 questions, and then our panel will assimilate and answer quickly, and we'll try to answer as as quickly as possible so we can entertain as many questions as possible. So 3 or 4 questions right quick. Yes.
Coming from a troubled place, my question is to Ms. Nicholas. Where the politics ends and where the diplomacy begins. And if the diplomacy fails, what remains then?
Okay. We'll hold that question. Another question.
For Dr. Ibrahim, please, I like where you started, having been a lecturer and you are now on the other side, basically walking talk. We find out that with a lot of leaders, they have good intentions, they know what is supposed to be, but when they get there, they are just not able to translate this and there's a failure there. What would you say, I know we've talked about many characteristics and virtues that leaders should have, but what would you think is, or what would you say is the most important skill or characteristic to overcome this challenge of knowing what to do and actually doing what we want to do without being overpowered by all the opposing forces?
Okay, great question. Next question.
Question 2, coming from a situation where we really have violence and really things that happen to us. Now you have a place where the government abdicates its responsibility, so you have non-state actors everywhere, and they're counting thousands of people every month in there. Where does it stop? What do you do when government abdicates its responsibility to protect lives and citizens? And directly citizens right now are having to discuss and negotiate lives of their relations and how to pay ransom. And this is every where does the diplomacy start? What options do citizens have when their own governments are taking their responsibility? Because we are trying to also see that we want degenerate into chaos. So what do we do?
Great question. Thank you. One more, and then Martins, and then we're gonna have to go with these, and we'll do other panel discussions in the next 2.5 days. Please.
Thank you. The Prime Minister has come speaking to their humanity. I'm coming from Nigeria, and the Burkina Faso is over here, Ghana is over here, South Africa is over here. Maybe Western countries are human. We have human leaders. In Africa, our leaders don't look human. The massive amount of instructions that go on and life continue. Ukraine has been fighting war. How many people have died? But Nigeria, there is no war, but people are dying every day. And the government makes no reference to it. It's like it never happened. So maybe there's a disconnect. The Prime Minister, you're talking about humanity. I haven't seen any. Maybe you can help them.
Excellent. All right, let's stop there with questions. I'm going to ask the panelists to be as brief as possible with your responses so we can cover as many of these answers as we can. Why don't you start, since Mark just addressed you, and then we'll go to the other panelists.
What I was trying to say on the humanity is when you have senior leaders always speaking to each other, even a superior partner, but when it comes to the meeting, he wants to negotiate. So that's totally different from what you have in your country. Now I'll tell you a story of Slovakia. We were a communist regime. The regime in the 50s, 1950s, were putting people in prison who were killing people. So, you know, we have the history of totalitarian leaders. Now, how do you deal with it? First of all, it's not going to come easy, and it's not going to come quickly. But in Slovakia, there was civic society together with Christian, because predominantly Central Europe is Christian. So they were working hand in hand, being persecuted, being put to prison, being killed, but they continued. And they developed this societal pressure. It was called underground church and underground civic society. Underground because it wasn't recognized by the society, it was actually suppressed. But what they did, they created a movement based on a vision and belief. And it took 4 decades, 40 years. But they grew up to such a masses that eventually also around with other countries, and with the help of Western civilization, the communism fall. And this is your hope. It's not going to come easy. There's going to be a lot of victims. People will die for the cause of freedom, but you will succeed. And you need to build up strategic leadership. That's very important. And with every generation, the leaders will be stronger, resilient, and you will come above the ground. And then you will conquer the countries back to the people, and you will be able to govern your country. So this is a big vision, and you have to believe in it. Wow.
We are sometimes also individually in situations where we change our lives into the world that go on like that. We are not master of illness, for instance. What I would say there is first, there is always a certain possibility for humanitarian work. And this is one of them. I asked the president of the International Committee of Red Cross years ago. We asked him, how is it that we can travel to places, third world countries, Islamic State government, where we had a sort of a passport of the Islamic State. The answer is very simple. Many of them were before prison in Baghdad. We visit, and so they have this opening still because they profited from it. So very often humanitarian work is the only thing we can try to do in these situations. And when government ends, of course, then what you see sometimes that is possible, sometimes difficult, is that on the local region level, we still can do some things. Very often unfortunately it's limited. But we always have to think to other, every good deed that brings the world a little bit higher. Every bad deed pushes it down. So it's this, conviction. At least we can have the feeling, well, I didn't do much, but as Mother Teresa once said, when she was asked journalists that you have to do, we do just little things, and what does it change in this world that all this misery? And her answer was, she said, yes, it's true, I can't do much, but still, if this drop would be in the ocean, it would be missing. That is, answer. At least there is a hope to real answer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a really good question. I just like to remind, leaders exist in certain social structures, right? Many institutions with culture, with different social structures that coexist. And we need to understand the difference between the boss, Marco himself, and a leader, right? So, let me give you an example from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Ministry of Foreign Affairs in any country is extremely difficult because it has to operate within the government, so it pursues the government's interest. But Ministries of Foreign Affairs is most of the time the longest in the history because it pursues of diplomacy, centuries and centuries. And unless there's like a coup d'etat or a dramatic change in the government structure, they're in continuation in terms of the service that they provide. And the core numbers of the country doesn't change, you know, one way to another. If you have a stable leadership, if you have a sound governmental style, you know, so there are different ways to do it. So, I think the change, of course, leader is a change agent, but we don't expect from leaders like, oh, I'm super transformative, right? So, in administrative foreign affairs, the change, even the leader wants to achieve changes or make changes, there is in the background, there is an operating system. So I think this is the beauty of foreign services. This is one of the reasons why we don't have wars in every 4 years all around the world, because the leader can say whatever he or she wants to say, you know, depending on the mood, for instance. We have these leaders, right? Different examples of these leaders. Very prudent ones, very emotional ones, and they have a great wide scale of leadership style to them. But the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the real operating machine, is the one who processes entire So I think this serves as a buffer zone, and you know, I think this goes back to our colleague from Nigeria's question in a way. Leaders don't exist in isolation. These are the people whom we elect. If you really want to think about the change, first we have to look at ourselves as a mirror effect. We need to understand the cultural dynamics. We need to understand the sociological dynamics in the country. Right? I am coming from one of those countries. You don't have to go to deep down Africa to, you know, to share your opinion. I'm coming from Turkey. Right? There are a lot of things that we can criticize of, you know, Turkish politics. But in the end of the day, we need to understand who elect these people. You know, in any country, who forms the governments, who are those people working at, you know, technocrats or bureaucrats or politicians and so forth and so on. So I think the change starts from us, right? So we need to remind ourselves the virtue system.
All right, we're going to have to draw this morning's session to a close. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been very informative and enlightening for me, and I hope the same is true for you. So here's what we're going to do. We have a grand total of 1 hour for lunch, all right? And we all have to process through the same line, all right? So, and you'll get down there and get instructions, but you get, I think Marissa, Sarah, help me, you get, what is it, one appetizer, one plate,
Yes,
and then
one dessert.
One dessert, all right. And what I want to say this as diplomatically as possible is please move as quickly as possible through the line as you can. You know, because if one person sits there and takes, you know, 5 minutes to make a choice on the meal, it's going to slow everybody up. But anyway, we have 1 hour. We'll be back here at 13:30, 1:30, for our afternoon session that Dr. Carr is going to lead, and it's going to be incredible. My encouragement to you is sit with somebody maybe that you don't know at lunch. Get to know them, because again, that's the purpose of why we're here. Relationship building, strengthening our leadership skills. So go enjoy lunch. We have the
So we have Marissa here and Clara there giving you the lunch passes.
all right, so grab one as you go out. Now,
Hey, Henry.
you go down.
Are the areas, can we leave things in the room? Is it secure?
That's a good question. I would say yes, it's secure. And I didn't tell you where to go. You go down to the first floor, number 1, not 0, but 1, and that's where the cafeteria is. You'll see it's a big space with lots of tables and everything. So enjoy lunch. We'll see you back here at 1:30. Thank you.
Very interesting. Maybe one day could be organized something like this in leadership in Shanghai University. No?
This conference, yeah, only 2 leaders.
Yeah. And the leadership in China is different. No. Eh? Yeah?
Yeah, sure. Got you
Also, GILPP Conference every
When do we